Welcome to another episode of Paranormal and the Normal. I'm your host, as always, Jeremy, here to try to make the world seem a little more normal. Does it ever happen? God, no. But we try. That's all that matters. And of course, I brought a guest to help me try to make this world seem a little more normal. And my guest tonight is author and experiencer Justin Ericson. Justin, how you doing tonight?
Jeremy, I am doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
My pleasure. When you told me your story, I kind of was curious enough that I'm like, all right, I had to have him on the show. This is a, I've heard similar stories, but it's always fascinating. It's always different in some little small way. So I had to have you on the show. And well, just
Absolutely.
kick it off by asking you the first question I ask everybody at this show. What got you into the paranormal, supernatural side of the world?
You know what? Honestly, it really started just on the grounds of personal reflection on my spiritual journey, just seeing, just trying to be open and receptive to what's been not taught to me or represented. And I started getting into it. And the further I got into it, the more observant I have been, specifically with people that in my life who have crossed over to the other side. And I have certainly been through some experiences myself, and it's very real to me that there's more out there than I know. And yeah, it's just very intriguing. It's very interesting, to say the least.
Well, that kind of leads us to my second question I always ask everybody. And what experiences made you go down that road?
Hmm. Well, I think just the curiosity of what happens after this life. I think, when you love certain people so much, there is that little chance of a desire that you do want to know what what's after this. What could they be doing? Are they up in heaven? Are they reincarnated? Um, and there have been certainly not a lot, but a few people that I've really wondered about who have died that I was very close to. And it's just incredible certain signs that come into my life from these particular individuals. And granted, there's not a lot, but specifically with my XT, there have been a number of situations where I have certainly felt him, and it's incredible. It really is. I do believe that the two worlds can connect based on the certain things I have gone through, and but I also think it's certainly a field that one should be careful, not to go too far or, um, kind of get it out of tune, I guess, with the chakras in our lives, right? With our energies. So
Exactly. I mean,
yeah.
those who spend more time with the passed on than with the living eventually end up hitting a very tough mental wall to break, and it's just not pretty. I mean, there's a name for it. I just can't remember what the hell the name is right now, but there's a name for that kind of
Oh,
situation.
absolutely. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, and there's actually a movie that kind of triggered this curiosity in me. It's called Ghost Town, and it's about a man who sees spirits. Well, they call it ghosts, obviously, in the movie. It's Hollywood and all, but um, he actually helps these souls with unfinished business. And I thought, huh, that's actually kind of fascinating. I mean, who's to say that psychics today, I know my psychic, Karina, I mean, she actually is that volunteer, that individual that they can channel through. And I actually talk about that in my book as well, just about what she did for me post my ex's demise, untimely demise. And she was able to connect with him, and she literally like heard him chuckle. He had this unique habit of, if you were talking to him, he would just kind of do this every few seconds, give or take, depending on what's been talked about. And she stopped twice during my reading, and I've been seeing her for 8 years. And she stopped twice during that reading, and said that, I'm sorry, he just keeps laughing, and I don't know what he's laughing about. And when she said that, I just had complete chills. It was just yet another confirmation that they can connect to us. And and she has been so responsible for me learning so much about the other side, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful world. It really is.
It is. And why don't you tell the audience? Because I mean, I know some small details based on what you told me about your tea, but why don't you tell the audience about him?
Sure.
As much as
So,
you, as much or as little as you want to share. I'm not going to force you to share anything you don't want to. But
oh no, no, not at all. Gosh, I'm so happy. So T was my very first partner in life. We met at school back in 2006, and it was just like any love at first sight, just one of those butterflies in your stomach situations. And we went through our honeymoon phase of just getting to know each other, enjoying each other's company and all that. But then, things started changing to where he got into drugs and he got into alcohol. And it was one of those situations where I was in a tough spot. Here it is. I was raised very religiously, very conservatively. There were a lot of stipulations I had. I couldn't watch any TV. I couldn't, listen to the radio unless it was like Christian music or classical. And it sheltered me a lot. But what it taught me was to be loyal, 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 loyal. And so I was loyal to him. So in my book, um, which is called Till Death Do You Part, and it's available on Amazon right now, is that sometimes when you issue out unconditional love for someone, it may not be worth it, right? Where people do change. And if you just give that out, even if it's your own family, family changes too. And it's just, I talk about just being very open about what could happen when you do that to somebody. And furthermore, and this is what draw me to get on these podcasts, is talking about what, funny enough, your theme is, which is the paranormal and the normal, because it's just so fascinating to me how people that we love that pass away still um, make us feel like they're there. And yeah, so
I mean, see, that's where I am unlucky, is because I've had many loved ones pass away between my one grandfather and my father, and just I've never experienced anything, even though I've looked for it to prove
really,
that they're still around. Like whether they, I mean, hopefully they're. I mean, if there is a heaven, my grandfather is definitely there because he was a deacon elder of the church and he was very religious, so he's definitely in heaven if there is a heaven. But my father, I'd like to think he's in heaven if there is one, but I just don't. You never can know for sure
sure,
unless it's someone like my grandfather. But other than that, you never can know for sure unless they were dedicated to the church all their lives, like he was. But my
yeah,
father stopped going to church a long time ago, and before he died, and it just wasn't his thing. It wasn't his scene anymore after he divorced my mother. So, which I get because I was agnostic myself for a long, long time, and I get that. I mean, I'm sorry, I was atheist for a long, long time, and now I'm agnostic. So,
I was about
I,
to ask.
yeah, I was atheist for most of my teenage years and my 20s, but now I like to believe there's something out there. I just don't want to put a name to it quite yet. I don't
Fair.
want I don't want to call something God when it's not God, when it's gray number 5, 6, 7 or something like that. Like who knows? Who really knows? And until I have
Absolutely.
until I have proof or something tells me that's what's really
Yeah.
true, then I can't just name names. It's just the way
Oh gosh.
my brain doesn't work that way. I can't just like pray to something I haven't seen or experienced.
No,
Which
and I think that's okay. I mean, we're all on our own unique journey. And I mean, for you to actually issue out a tone of being careful, because this is your soul that you're trying to, find out what is the best path on that. I commend you for that, because I think a lot of people quickly kind of cling on to a faith and just say, this is just my rope that I'll cling on to and I'll just go with it. Whereas people like you and myself, searching for that spiritual journey. So I commend you for that. That's really a fantastic thing.
well, if you don't mind me asking,
Mhm.
what religion were you brought up in? Was it Christian Catholic or was it one of the other ones out there?
Great question. So I was raised Pentecostal, Assemblies of God.
Okay.
I was funny enough, my parents would drive me to church and then they'd take me home. They never really went to church with me past the age of, I would say, 8 or 9.
Really?
Um, yeah, and that was different. I always said, I was raised in a kind of like a Amish borderline family where there were strict rules and I had to do things that they didn't have to do, like church, and was very active in the church. I would teach youth groups certain weeks, and I would also do Sunday school. I was a camp counselor. I was a newsletter editor. I was on the worship team. I mean, I was just all in, and for a long time. And then the transition from being a hardcore Pentecostal Christian was, first of all, identifying who I was as a person. And being raised in the church, I was told, that being gay was wrong and that you go to hell for it. And that really, at that moment, when I came out of the closet after reading a book called Stranger at the Gate by Mel White, I had the courage to come out to my church family, quote unquote. I say family because, when I did come out, I lost 80% of them.
I'm
And
sure.
it really made me question my faith. And then it just kind of allowed me the opportunity to take a step back and to evaluate where my spiritual life is. And I think it's okay to wander in the fog, because to lose yourself is to find yourself. And I do believe that. I do believe in that. And so now I consider myself a henotheistic pagan, where basically, I'm Wiccan. So I practice, we have our own Book of Shadows, and so each Wiccan kind of does his or her own um, made rituals, and every Halloween is a very special time for me, because, or for all of us in the pagan community, because what we do is we honor somebody that has passed away, and the night is all about that one individual. And the rituals, it's a fantastic opportunity to remember somebody. And so what you do is you set up an extra plate of food and you invite them in, you say a prayer. I'll normally say a prayer welcoming that individual in. And I did that with tea last year. And I had thought that after seeing my psychic that, I had all the closure that I had craved with him in life, because things were really abusive with him. Um, and I didn't. There was more closure that I got that Halloween night. And it had been, I'm not sure how long between the reading and Halloween night it was off the top of my head. But I remember being overcome with emotion for a few minutes. And, I've got a celestial light that would flicker on and off. And, after, what I do too is I'll rinse the plate and then discard it. And then I'll send it back up. Blessings be upon you. And, so Halloween is certainly one of my favorite holidays of the year, just because of that, you know.
I mean, yeah, that sounds like an amazing way to spend a Halloween. Honestly, I mean, I got kids, so every
And
Halloween
it's cheap.
that too. I mean, I got
Yeah.
kids, so every Halloween I'm walking the streets with them. I mean, before I had kids, I just never celebrated Halloween at all anymore. Really, I just would either be working or would be sitting home just
Yeah, I hear
drinking,
that.
drinking, and I mean, I'd have candy if there's any trick or treaters, but I never really lived in any place where there was trick or treaters. So,
Sure, sure. Oh
all
yeah.
right, well, actually, I mean, okay, and then a few recent years before that, I used to go out trick or treating with my family's kids and just go drinking along the way.
Definitely. Absolutely.
It makes it interesting when you go when you're drinking, because then all the costumes look even cooler. But
Well, what my psychic did say is that when we do consume alcohol, it actually increases the presence of entities. It's very interesting.
I can't say I've seen proof of that, but I like the idea of it. So
Sure. Yeah, no, for
I
sure.
and I mean, I consume alcohol pretty regularly, so I mean, I would think. Oh, actually, now that I think about it, I drink a lot during podcasting, and I've literally had mediums tell me, like, at the end of a podcast, like, there's a spirit next to you. And I live in a haunted house, so it doesn't really surprise me, but sometimes they say it's not him, it's this family member. And I'm like, what's that now?
Huh,
And
wow.
but yet I can't communicate with them. I've tried. Like those nights after I shut off my computer and everything, like I shut down my computer, I'll just sit here and I'll be like, are you really, like, I'll try talking to them and like I get no response, no signs or anything. So I don't know.
So, oh wow. So what is it that you do know about him? Because it's you got the gender, and apparently he's the only one here. What all do you know about him? I'm curious.
Oh, about the one in my house.
Hmm.
He's male. His name is Rowley. Him and his wife built this house when they were in their, I'm guessing, built in 67 or 70, 67, I think. So
Hmm.
they had to be in their 20, maybe their 20s or 30s. They built this house, but and I mean I've been told different stories by different mediums and different paranormal investigators.
Hmm.
The investigators believe that the wife and husband are both here still. Some mediums say it's just the husband, but I don't know what to believe.
Did
I mean,
something tragic happen with the couple?
no, I mean
Mm.
I'm not sure what she died of, but she died in 2017 or 16, and he died at, oh no, wait a minute. Yeah, and then he died in 2019, I believe,
Wow.
from lung issues, because this house has radon issues, so I had to get that fixed as soon as I moved in. But we think that's what he died from, because when the paranormal investigators were at my house back over a year ago now,
Hmm.
like we were actually asking them questions with not the right dowsing rods, and like I actually said, like, I fixed the radon problem with a lot of other issues in the house, and I heard something say "thank you" in my ear, and nobody else heard it.
Oh my God.
And literal chills down
That
my
just sent me
spine and
chills.
back.
Oh, yep.
Literally, my whole back was chilled at that point. I was just like, and they took a few pictures, which I gotta find that damn picture because I keep meaning to put it up on my podcast page because
Oh,
people have
yeah.
asked me about it. But they took a picture of me when I said when I said I heard that, and they're like my arms like kind of like hanging down like this to the side of
Yeah.
me, and you can see between my arm and my side, like I think it's a face, and
Yeah, sure.
other people have looked at it and said it's a face too. Other people are like, I don't see anything, but oh, look at the puppy,
I'm sorry. Yeah, she's just wanting to say hi. This is my dog Nancy Noodle right here. Say
adorable.
hi. Thank you. But yeah, wow, that is just amazing to hear. And to I wonder, hey, you just never know. Maybe he's so, you said that they had built the house, and I mean, wow.
I mean, well, according to the last medium that actually like saw him from a remote viewing while we were doing a podcast,
Hmm.
he likes to spend most of his time in the garage and the carport because he had I don't know if they want to call it, he had a nice car, whether it's an antique or it was just a nice car that he loved. Like, I don't know, but there was a nice Beamer when I moved in here, but I don't think it was an antique by any means. But
Oh,
and I mean, of course, his family members took it away before we moved in. But
oh, darn.
I know, trust me, I would love to drive that thing. And I'm not a car guy either, but I would love to drive that thing. And
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
bet.
but he spends most of his time in the garage in the carport.
Hmm.
We used to have a garage. Okay, we used to have a camera in the garage, which we now have it down the basement with the other camera for our dogs. But because I have two mastiffs, but we
Oh,
we caught on a camera in the garage a ghost light or an orb, and I actually have multiple videos I posted on my page of orbs and stuff in the garage, just
oh yes.
weird sounds at night that I can't like sign away to anything in the house. So
Okay. So
it's
you
interesting.
have seen some things. That's and what do you feel is the history of orbs? Because I've heard many different things. Do you have any idea or theory about that?
I do. I mean, I have a theory, and I've been told I'm wrong by some people. I've been told that it's interesting by some people, and I've been told by some people that maybe that's actually the right theory. But basically, here it is.
Sure.
To me, an orb or ghost light is basically a ghost baby, someone who's newly deceased and doesn't quite know how to form any shapes with their form yet. Now,
Okay. I like that theory.
but I mean, and I also believe that as they get older, they turn into shadow people, and when they can start like kind of forming a shape, but not like being able to do like features yet. That's when they're
Hmm.
shadow people. And I believe once they hit a certain ghost age, that they can do full body apparitions once they learn to control their features. So, I
Very
mean,
cool.
that's a theory I have. I've been told that shadow people are something completely different and that they have nothing to do with ghosts. But I also been told, but I mean, it's the paranormal. Any theory
Eh,
you have,
yeah.
there's gonna be naysayers. There's gonna be people that are really like, you're right. and there's gonna be people who won't
Exactly.
read.
And there's always, and this is something, Jeremy, I've thought about too in the past, is that what if your truth, what if your beliefs are real for you, yet for me, my beliefs are not your reality. I should word it like that, where that's your way because that's what you believe and that's what may be true for you. And then for me, it could be a whole new different set of circumstances where my beliefs, so there's always that possibility too. I mean, everybody has their own theory. We've got over, just in the Christianity alone, we have over 38,000 denominations, and that's a
Yeah,
lot of branches on a tree. Um, but I would like to believe that, I mean, if we were LDS, if we were Mormon, we'd still be given an opportunity to accept salvation after death. So every religion has its own, I think, well intent, as long as it's, a positive religion, but they all have the same ground and restrictions to where it's like, okay, well, you got to be in this group if you're going to believe in this, and this is what you have to do. And I can't do that. Just like politically, I can't go with the party. I have to look at the person. I have to look at the character, and then we go from there. And that's how I feel about religions. I think it's the majority of us aren't practicing. That's just a proven fact. And I think it's just we're coming out of climate, and especially here in the country, where we're looking for answers. I mean, my gosh, we got spy balloons and possible extraterrestrial beings out there, and people are starting to get super curious, and I think it's becoming more of a trend to just kind of explore this field, and I think it's a really healthy opportunity. You know,
I believe so too. I I mean, there's definitely extraterrestrials in my mind at
hmm
least, but and as far as the government goes, yeah, there's a reason
yeah.
there's a reason I'll do a politic podcast. But uh,
Sorry.
let's just say the wrong man's in the big house that's white nowadays. I'll say that, and my listeners know how I feel because they've heard it before. But you believe what you want to believe,
Fair.
listeners. I'm not going to judge you for it because everybody has the right to believe what they want to believe. But I mean,
100%.
religion, I was against. I mean, I'm still against organized religion to some degree. I'm totally for you want to believe in something, believe in it with all your heart
Yeah.
and your fullest heart, and believe in it.
Yeah.
And if it lets you lead your life in a happy way, great. But we don't need organized religion because all they do is take money from us.
Stop it.
All
Stop
they do
it.
is it's all good. All they do is take money from us, and some of them do a lot worse than that. That I will say. So
You're absolutely right. It's a bind. It's a bind. And now what they're doing, especially in the televangelical movement, is, they're starting to blend politics with the church. And that to me is just so left
well,
field.
I mean, politics and the church have been combined since 1200, 1300 England, like back in the day. Like politics and
Well, yeah,
church have always been combined to some degree. I mean,
but
it's
it's
just
gotten so more heavily,
mm,
I feel the past, like, 5, 10 years. Um, but regardless, back to that whole issue of the soul, I think it's just and for me it's like, okay, here I am. I'm approaching 40 before I know it, in the next few years. And it's like I have to know, I have to be content with my belief system, and I'm always learning and I'm always receptive. And I think if more people were like that, they would be happier. I really do.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, I 100% agree with that. I mean, people should do what makes them happy, whether society likes it or not. I mean, yes, don't
yeah,
be a serial killer or something like that because it makes you happy. Like there's limits to
that's
everything,
true. There are limits,
but
yes.
but do what makes you happy. Like that's always been the biggest message I tell everybody is like, if it makes you happy and it's not gonna hurt anybody else in the process,
No.
then go ahead and do it.
And
But
you do not need a following for that. You can just do that on your own and make that good enough, because nobody's going to do you but you.
well, I mean, me in my 20s, I don't agree with that statement, but I'm
Oh,
not married.
well,
I mean,
I,
I
can
get,
see that. Yes.
I get what you're saying, but I mean, I had to throw that in there. But
I
being a
love
married
that. Yes, that was good.
being a married man, I now see differently. But
Sure,
um,
sure.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, no
But our
one.
mental health is so important, you know.
It is. I'm a big advocate for mental health. I mean,
Yeah.
I've gone through some dark, dark places in my life, and
Mm,
it took years for me to get over some of these things. But
sure.
mental health is important, and
Yeah.
no. I mean, it's always been a big emphasis on women's mental health. When
Yeah.
and in the last few years, there's been a great, thanks to podcasting a lot as well. Shout out to my boy Harvey Laguerre. There's been a big
Hey there.
lit from Men of the Prize podcast. There's been a big, among others, and Sean Young from Sing with Sean podcast. Sorry, I can't leave you out, buddy. But there's been a huge uplift in men's mental health awareness lately, and over the last few years, and it's
Yeah.
important because so many men every day take their own lives because they don't have the support they need, and
Yeah.
I feel for that. I really do. It's just, I mean, luckily I always had a family who was there for me and would, if I need someone to talk to, they're always a call away. Like
Yeah.
I always knew that. Not everybody grows up the same way I did. I understand that, and people. I mean, Robin Williams is my prime example for that.
No.
Always the man who
I
was
know.
always smiling and laughing
Oh, I know.
did something horrible to himself, and
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, yes, I've made jokes about it on other podcasts because that's what those
Well,
podcasts were for. But
and if we could just say something specific about that, because I may be so rude, I'm so sorry. I totally
oh,
interrupted you.
uh, no, no, no,
Um,
please.
with Robin Williams, with his very rare form of dementia, it I guess research has it to where when you have that, you can see hallucinations. And so what I'm wondering is if you, I guess then if you have certain mental, I don't know, chemicals opening up in your brain or something to attract hallucinations, what if those hallucinations are our entities, our spirits, our lost souls? And because he did hang himself from this rare form of dementia that he had during that episode. And I think it's a possibility. I'm wondering if it's a possibility. It's very intriguing. They talk about the third eye. They talk about the fourth dimension. They talk about how with like there's a show on Netflix called How to Change Your Mind, and it dives into the psychedelics and it dives into what the Native Americans use, which is peyote, and it
Yeah,
takes 15 years for that to grow. Um, and it just provides that bridge to get to those territories. And maybe what Robin Williams had was just another portal for that, and it was really frightening and scary.
it's possible. I mean, who's to say that the dementia he had really just wasn't? I mean, another dimension. I mean, and there's more than four dimensions. I'll tell you that much. I've had guests on my show who tell you there's countless dimensions that they visit while they lucid dream and astral project. But
Oh, wow, how cool.
yeah, I mean, some of these dimensions I've been told you don't want to go to because the inhabitants that live there, I don't even want to call them people, but the inhabitants that live there are not. They're scary. Is the best word for it. But there's also other
Really?
dimensions where you feel like you're home. There's other dimensions where the creatures seem friendly and warm, and
Huh.
but I mean, there's yin and yang for everything in this world, so that makes sense. But
Have you had a consistency of guests that have said the same thing about how they appear, these creatures?
no, no, I mean, well,
Mm.
I haven't had that many lucid dreamers on my show, honestly. I mean, this the one I had on Vincent Black. He wrote a book about it, and they're all different. They all look different. I mean, he couldn't even describe them like a lot of them, and like besides like vague descriptions, because you just when you wake up, you don't remember everything. You just
That's
remember
right.
parts of it, but that's meant to happen though. You're not supposed to remember things that happen when you're asleep. So
That's right.
I
And
mean, I'm a
yeah.
stoner, so I barely ever dream. But
Oh, I believe in that 100%. Me as well. And dreams too. I think dreams do have a special meaning. I used to record all my dreams growing up, and I would have these books of my dreams, and I felt always that dreams always had meanings to them. Especially during because I still dream, not as much though. Um, but some dreams I have, I can see the light, I can feel the air, I can feel the weight. of my body, and I could see color. And other dreams, most dreams these days, unlike when I was growing up, they're more forgotten. I'll wake up and be like, oh yeah, I don't remember that. um, and then there's of course sleepwalking, putting knives in the garage, putting socks on the kitchen counter, putting gallons of milk in my room. I sleepwalk a lot. So,
Thank, thank,
unfortunately.
thankfully, that's one curse I'm gonna say that I never have been blessed with. I mean, I just
That's
I
good.
I slept walk once in my life.
Yeah.
It's a famous story in my family, but I slept walk once in my life when I was a kid when I was very sick, and that was it. And
Oh,
I
geez.
actually okay, I'm sorry, it was twice in the same
Uh-huh.
sickness because I decided to relieve myself in a garbage can and then the refrigerator. So
Oh, man. Where's the video? That would have
this
been
was it.
hilarious.
This was the '90s, luckily before that existed.
Hey,
But I mean,
it maybe there's a connection. But yeah, no, that runs in my family, and I slept drove once, and that was scary because I woke up I took a nap before. I used to work back to back 2 jobs, and so I got off my first job and I went right to my second job. I had 2 hours, and I fell asleep in the parking lot. I set my alarm, and then when my alarm went off, after I dozed off, I woke up and I was just in a completely different area. I was about 2 miles away. Um, but thank God that was the only time that happens. Um, but that could be another discussion about how all that works, you know?
well, I
Um,
mean,
yeah,
is it possible that that people who sleepwalk when they sleep,
I mean,
a spirit takes over their body for a little bit,
exactly.
or I mean, could it be almost like a dual personality thing in a way,
Hmm.
like a sleeping personality, almost I would call it, like where when you sleep, the other personality wakes up. Like there's a TV show I'm trying to think of. I can't. Oh, it's kind of like the Flash with Frost, with Caitlin and Frost, like how when one sleeps, the other would come out, and
Oh,
Killer Frost, that's her name, yeah, Killer Frost and Caitlin, like how like she had to learn to work in harmony with her other side, and eventually split
hmm.
it off because like when one slept, the other would wake up. Like I forget, there's a name for it. I forget what it's called, but I call them sleeping personalities.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. In fact, um, there's a gal named Susan Preverell, and she wrote a book called Wisdom of a Broken Heart. And she talks about with 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 your struggles, your mental health issues, with your problems, with your demons, you want to, instead of warding them off and dislodging them, she actually talks about getting to know them. And you literally just said it, kind of getting to know. And I think that provides the gap too between both worlds, in a sense. But I'm not trained in any way to attract souls at all. I just do this once a year, and that's on Halloween night. And it's a tradition that I won't ever change. I think it's a really beautiful thing.
I do too. And
Yeah.
speaking of which, if you don't mind me asking,
Hmm.
when did T pass away?
No worries. Yeah, so he passed away February 15th of 2021. And my friend, who was his PFOD counselor, had dropped him off Valentine's Day back at his apartment, and they had an argument. Um, my his counselor Randy was just like, you need to get your shit together. Oh, excuse me, sorry, language.
Oh, you can.
Um,
It's fine. It's fine.
and it wasn't his first time attempting suicide, but finally, February 15th, it happens. He actually successfully killed himself. He overdosed, and ever since then, for me, Valentine's Day has been a curse because in my book I talk about the fact that no matter what abuse he brought me through or manipulative behavior he got me in, I was still right there, and I was still. Now I look back and I know that I enabled certain things like his
Yeah,
plastic surgery. He had an addiction to that and all that, which I dive into the book. But um, it's really fascinating learning at it. during life, just learning on the spot about these things and not realizing the lessons that you missed until much later on. And I did that with him, so
It's true. I mean,
yeah.
I personally have dated heroin addicts and not realized it until I was 6 months into a relationship. So, I mean, this was also over a decade ago, but I was young and
Sure.
naive. But I dated a heroin addict and didn't realize she was a heroin addict for at least 4 to 6 months in, and I basically lost my bank account, which was pretty full at the time, completely disappeared
Mm,
over a year. And the only reason it ended was because she moved to North Carolina when we were currently in New York at that time. So
I'm so
she,
sorry.
no, it's I don't feel hate for her anymore. I don't feel even used anymore. It's just a stupid mistake I made in my youth, and one of many. But
Mm,
we all make stupid mistakes. We all make stupid mistakes in our youth, and it's how we
yes.
learn. It's how we learn about the world. But it's just if she didn't have a daughter, I probably would have been out of there a long time before I got out of there because I felt bad for the daughter. That's why I stuck around.
Sure.
And I mean, her daughter is an adult now. I'm sure she has to be. Yeah, she has to be an adult by now in her 20s. And Aaliyah, if you ever hear this, I stuck around for you. It wasn't for your mother because she didn't deserve me. But you need someone in your life that was stable. So we only dated
And
for a
thank you for
year.
that message. Yeah.
We only dated for a year, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I can't find her on Facebook. I can't find her daughter on Facebook now. So I just don't know if they're not into it or if she changed her last name or something. I don't know. But then again, I also don't want to talk to her because, I mean, she got clean, I believe, when she moved away because she had no sources she knew down there. But I don't, I don't know. I haven't talked to her in over a decade and really don't have the urge to.
You do not have the urge to.
No, I'm happily married. I don't need to talk to another woman I dated in the past. Like,
Oh, right. That's right. I completely forgot that.
I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, I mean, still, I mean, I wouldn't mind knowing she's okay and that her daughter are okay and they have a good life now. It'd
of
be
course.
closure kind of in a way. But I mean, I stopped looking a long time ago because apparently they didn't want me to find them or fate would have made it happen.
Sure. No, that's
So,
fair. That's fair. Gotta love the twists and turns in life, the roller coasters that we just end up being on and
oh,
going so
I
fast. And yeah,
went through so many dark parts of that roller coaster, but then I came out to the what seems like now the last downhill in the light. It's kind of like what I'm in now. It's a long hill, but it's light. That's all that matters.
and you seem happy. Do you seem happier? I should ask, do you seem happier than before? I mean, as far as now that you're married and now that you have children, um, how
Happy,
do you feel?
happy, yes, to some degree. I mean, there are plenty of times I curse and I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't have children. I wish I didn't have dogs. I wish I was single. But
Of course. Yeah,
I feel like every man or woman goes through the same thing where they just want to be alone from time to time and they want their space. That's just what it is. I mean, eventually I go looking for my wife and for my kids because I'm like, all right, I'm getting lonely. Where the hell are the people I live with that I want to be around? But
yeah,
so
that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
and yes, Vanessa, ooh, happiness takes work, and
Mm,
goddamn right it does. And I
sure
mean,
does.
I personally got a little happiness this morning when I got woken up at 5 o'clock for a little something, something. But that's me, and I mean
Of course.
that's all it takes sometimes. That's all it takes
Rise and
sometimes.
shine. Of course, yeah.
Literally. But I mean, it's just
But you can't expect happiness to just arrive. You have to work at it. And just like anything else in life, you have to do that construction, whether it be emotional construction, mental, you know, physical. You have a dream. It's your job. It's pretty much up to you. It's not, and that's the problem with a lot of people these days. And I know I have been guilty of this periodically in my past where there's these self-entitled moments and it's like you can't have that. You can't get lazy. You have to work with what you want. The whole law of attraction. I'm a huge believer in that. Um, I'm a huge believer in that. I think what we put out there, we get back tenfold. And
oh
um,
karma. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
karma and
it comes in
karma.
good and bad.
I'm a huge believer in karma. If you If I try to be nice to anybody I can in the world because it will come back to me. I know it will. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
Hell, I literally have had a Walmart worker hand me a $50 bill before and say, "Did you drop this?" And I'm just like, "Yup." But I mean, it's I'm sure I did something
Yeah.
good to deserve it. That's why I didn't mind taking it because life works in mysterious ways, and I don't question that. But I try to be good to everybody because guess what? People who are dicks and a-holes to everybody,
True.
they things eventually fall down all around them, and it's kind of happening to someone I know personally right now, and it's making me happy. But I am
Yeah.
being a little petty in that one. But I mean, you get what you reap what you sow. That saying is one of
Yeah.
the truest sayings of all time. You reap what you sow.
Every decision certainly does matter. In fact, one of the reality shows I watched, Real Housewives of New Jersey, one of the housewives said something so impactful in like an early season. She said, "When you hang around trash for too long, you actually start to stink." And how true, right? And so the company you're around, that's what you're going to get out, and that's what the curse is with social media and TV and movies is that there's so much negativity, there's so much horror and so much hurt and fear that we see and hear from watching and that we call entertainment. I think not everybody, I know I'm really not huge in those genres. I mean, a little bit, but a lot of people that just gets desensitized in their brains. And that's pretty scary. I think that's pretty scary, and it sets yourself up. It
Yeah,
sets yourself up.
there are so many horror movies out there because I just watched about 80 or 90 horror movies back in October for a bracket I was on another podcast. But
Wow.
like, yeah, and I am not a horror
Yeah,
movie. I'm not a horror movie fan by any means, but I did it for a bracket. So for podcasts I will watch things I usually don't watch. And
sure.
I mean, there's just so many movies about like things happening because of heartbreak and because of oh, he,
Mm,
he didn't choose me to be his lover, so I'm gonna go kidnap him and torture him.
yeah,
So I mean, it's dark. It's a dark fucking world, and
it really is.
in I mean, I just every day there's another freaking person arrested for killing someone or being a serial killer or there's the news is depressing as hell. I haven't watched it ever because I just can't.
It's yeah. I have to too take moments. My mom actually, it's funny. She said something so impactful. She said that she doesn't read the news. She just reads the headlines, and that's good enough for her. And that's a very healthy boundary. And but you're right. There's moments where I skip watching the news because I have allowed what I saw before to get to me in a fearful way. Like, the spy balloons was kind of a scary thing. I'm like, that's crazy. What's this world coming to? And just all these different news stories, these African Americans being innocently slaughtered, or shot at, killed. And I can't take a lot of that these days. It's like the older I get, and I don't know if you can relate, but the older I get, the more softy I do become, and the more absorbing like a sponge I become as well. You know,
I I have a lot to distract me in life, so I don't let it affect me the way a lot of other people do. I mean,
sure,
at the end of the day, I kind of just let out a sigh and be like, it's the world or the matrix we live in. I don't know which, but it's one of the things we live in. I mean, either we live in this world that we all think we do, or we live in this matrix and we have no control over what happens anyway. So what's the difference? I mean, those are my two thoughts at the end of the day. Every
I
day,
like that.
basically, I question whether we're in a matrix or not because it just seems like we go in cycles and we don't get any better. But
That's fair. That's fair.
I
Very
don't know
fair.
though. I mean, that's one of my favorite conspiracies is the idea that we live in a matrix-like society, and whether it's extraterrestrials or who knows that are running it, but we, it's very possible, I think, because we all have our routines pretty much every day. Most of us have our routines, and we just do them, no
It's like we're
questions asked.
programmed. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I my days were a little different for a long time because I worked from home and then I was unemployed, but it just I don't know. It just I question a lot of things in this world and nowadays, and for my kids' sake, I don't want anything to happen to this world. But
Of course.
if I was a single man with no kids, I probably wouldn't care.
Well, families do tend to strengthen us, that's for sure. And you look at places like Europe where that country, that atmosphere is so less stressful. I mean, you get required paid time off from work that you have to take, and if you don't, it's illegal down there. Every place you rent from, even if it's an apartment, they're eventually rented to own. So after a
Yeah.
certain amount of years, it's yours. You don't have to pay rent. A lot of places are closed on Sundays over there. You are required to take an hour lunch from work. The mental health and just the atmosphere of people, from what I hear in Europe, is so different from the climate here. And we are so damn competitive. We are so um, concerned about what people think of us. We're so in other people's business that it's just so much noise. And for a lot of people, especially going through the cycle of drug abuse or alcohol abuse,
A way to silence it.
that's right. It's what they think is going to be the fill, but they don't really factor in the cost of having that to fill that void. And it's messed up. And I can't blame, I really can't. I really can't blame the user of it entirely. I think it's just a lot of different factors. It's not just self-will, it's influences.
It
It's like, you
is.
know what I'm saying? Yeah,
It is. But
100%.
I mean, I've been through some dark fucking times in my life, and the only things I ever touched were alcohol and weed. I refuse to ever go harder than those. I've
Wish
been
I could say
offered.
the same.
I'm sure a lot of people, I'm sure, say the same thing. I've been offered harder, but see, here's the thing.
Mhm.
My cousin, growing up, he was 6 years older than me always. He was a heroin addict for a long, long time, and then an alcoholic for a long time. He's
Mm,
finally better now. He can drink now without going overboard, and he doesn't hadn't touched the heroin in a long time.
that's good.
But I mean, maybe it's because growing up with that, it made me not want to touch anything else because I saw him go through it. But I don't know. Or maybe it's just is that I'm that strong willed where I could see the negative in all of it, and I don't know. Maybe it's because I was educated on it all through the years of that this is horrible, don't touch it. But there's a
I'm so glad
thousand
to hear that. Yeah,
there's a
I'm
thousand
so glad to hear
reasons.
that.
There's a thousand reasons, but yet kids younger than me get into these things every day, these hard drugs, and I question why. Like, why do they do it? If their lives are that bad, they need to escape from reality. Yeah, I kind of get it. But at
Yeah,
the end of the day, there's better options, and why don't they see that? Like, it's a mystery.
exactly.
It's a mystery to me. I've always been one to kind of say, like, someone dies of an overdose. I'm just like, well, it was their choice in a way. I mean, unless someone literally forced it into them, like it was their choice.
100%.
Which
No,
I do sympathize with all these people. I really do. Like, no one deserves to die
I
that
feel it.
way. But it's just personally, it's hard for me to not see some fault of their own in it. I mean,
Oh gosh, no.
there may be. It's at the end of the day, it is their choice. At the end of the day, it's really their choice if they're doing it.
Yeah,
If it was them that did it, but plenty of, plenty of mafias and gangs have used that as a way to execute people by making it look like a drug overdose. So there have been situations where it's not that person's choice and they are forced to die a horrible death because of somebody else. But 80% of the time, it probably is their choice. And I sympathize with it. I wish there was a better way. I wish the world had a better way to control these things so that these things weren't available to people. But it's just never going to happen, I don't think. And that's the sad part.
I it's just relieving though to hear that, one of the things you said is that when you saw, you said your brother going through that,
Cousin.
or sorry, excuse me, cousin,
I
it
don't want
literally deterred
I
you.
don't want I don't want my brother to ever hear this and think I was calling him that.
Oh
But
no, sorry. Yep, totally cousin, definitely not brother. Um, and not everybody's like that, and I say that because, you know, when T killed himself, the it spread. His parents are, they're great people. They were. It's been a long time since I've seen them in years, but they were so hospitable, so kind. They always knew about his struggles. And they knew that I was weathering the storm as best as I could. All this, and I guess what I did recently is his father is now down the path, and I cried for 2 hours after that phone call with T's uncle. I I just felt that my heart was just so heavy, and it just makes me wonder how other family members of those that have taken their own lives have on the same road, and that's so much to take in for someone like me. I'm logical, but I'm very emotional as well. Um, and yeah, so
I mean, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's always a sad thing. No matter
mhm,
what, no matter the reason they did it, it's always a sad thing, and it just you almost get conditioned to it though, because
mhm,
I mean, I've known people for the last decade at least, maybe 15 years, that have died because of overdosing, and people I went to high school with, people that were a grade or two above me, or a grade or two below me, or even this day and age, people that were like the age of my mom's daycare kids when I was a kid, like that have off themselves with drugs or other methods. And it's just like, wow, never would have saw that coming. But then again, I didn't know them for anything, and I didn't know them from a hole in a wall. So I
sure,
mean, it's just it's sad, but
it
but
is.
so how often does T actually like visit you? Just out of curiosity.
Well, you make it sound like it's a flight, um, which he does actually technically, spiritually. Um, it's not often. It's it was more prevalent very soon after he died, but these days, I mean, maybe once every other month, give or take. And what'll happen is that I have a celestial light, and it'll come on for a few seconds, and then just whenever that happens, I just say, "Hey, I recognize your presence. Thank you," and then it's over. Um, that particular issue did not start prior to, and I've had this now for 4 years, give or take. Never did that until after he died, and it was just weird. The first time it happened, I didn't really think much. It happened again, and then I was like, maybe that's T, because I have been watching Island Medium on TLC for years, and in that show, uh, it just made me a believer. Talking with Korean, and we going back those many many years. So I do believe in science, and I'm curious if I may inquire you, how many people in your life have crossed over that you said have passed away earlier?
I mean, I've had a number of people pass away in my life. My grandfather, both my grandfathers, one grandmother, my father, and a few other more distant family members have passed away.
Yeah.
But I mean, my one grandfather and my father were and my grandmother, I guess, that passed away. Like I was close to all of them, and I've yet to experience any of them truly. My brothers had dreams about my father, like right after he passed, about him being in a place where he's happy and he's healthier. But I've never had anything, and just they always say those who want to see. I mean, those who want to see don't see. It's those who don't want to see that end up seeing things. So, I mean, that's always been the saying I've gone by for the last 20 years. But
Okay, that's where I like that. Where when you're looking, it looks there is that. And just know though, Jeremy, I just want to tell you, it doesn't have to be restricted to dreams. It could be. I mean, we've heard tales of the past about, oh, I found a penny on the ground. That's my mom saying hi to me from heaven. You know,
Well, I mean, I've looked for that type of stuff too because I know about that type of stuff, and I mean, I've interviewed
yeah.
people about that type of stuff, but it's just nothing has ever pointed to either one of them really. I mean, yes, anytime I eat sushi, anytime I eat German food, I think of my father,
Hmm.
but there's nothing there that signifies he's there. Like it's stuff I would normally eat. Like it's not like anything. It's not like I go to a sushi place and it's like, oh, you get a free plate of sushi. Like then I'd be like, maybe. But I mean, other than that, like it's just I don't know. It's just my normal routine. It's not like it's nothing special to me. Like
Well, because when I hear that, what I'm tempted to believe is that your dad puts that thought in your head, and that's him. I mean, as corny as that sounds, when you think that, I feel that's his way of just,
I
I
mean,
don't know, maybe.
I crave sushi on a daily basis. So I don't think that's my dad. I think that's just
Oh,
I think that's just me being a fat guy that likes to eat sushi. But
oh, that's of my food too.
I mean, same thing
Yes.
with German food. Like I was brought to believe I was part German, more German than I really am,
Wow.
due to other issues. But so I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
I always want to eat German food. Like sauerkraut, I'll eat every day of the week if I'm given it. Like so, I mean, it's just one of those things. But
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
And that's
And then,
okay. I can't, I don't
but
her at
I
all.
I feel like that's the point of this episode is us saying really we don't know and
Hmm.
we're not gonna know. No one really knows. I mean, yes, some mediums supposedly know, but no one's really gonna know what happens after death until we're there. And by then, it's too late because do we really know what's going on then at that point even, or is it really still us, or is it just the spirit that resides, the spirit soul that resides inside of us, and that could be a completely different being than us. And when it goes into its next body, if you believe the way a lot of people believe and the way I believe in, like in reincarnation, then maybe they don't remember. They don't remember a thing. Maybe they'll remember a memory here or there. That's how we get reincarnation stories. But to me, that's just kind of. I mean, it's all unknown. That's basically the message of this story. Is it's all unknown.
Mhm.
But
It
I'm
is.
glad. I'm glad that you do get visits from T, and
Thank you
that way you get some kind of relief from the sympathy, and
so much.
you know he's good. That's the important thing is you know he's good where he is,
Oh yes,
and
he's yes,
he can live without fighting those demons on a daily basis. So
100%, 100%. You know, my psychic told me that literally he's a counselor for lost souls right now. You know, his whole passion of people when he was in the medical field, he gave his entire life to his patients, and it just gave him away after some. You know, he get home and a little piece. I remember he came home one day crying, and I was holding him because an 8-year-old had died in his arms, and that had affected him so much, and his heart was just so big for people that were ill. She told me that, and I had mentioned that to Karina, but she had mentioned to me that um, providing counseling for the lost souls, and yeah, it's really cool.
well, um, as long as you're finding your happiness, then I'm happy for you.
Thank you
But
so much.
tell my listeners where they can find your book, where they can find you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. So my book, it's called Till Death Did We Part, and it's available on Amazon.com. You can get it in ebook form, hardback. But there's also an audiobook version. It's available on Spotify. Will soon be on Audible.com as well, no later than 24th of this month. And so I invite everyone to check out my book. And I want you all to know that if you're currently in an addiction or going through abuse, relationship, and just know that you're not alone. And hopefully my story can be you as you navigate through that fog, and as you hopefully get into a clear space, just know that you're not alone. Um, that's where you get me. You absolutely.
Well, I thank you for that, and I advise all my listeners to go check out this book because I will put a link for it right in the description of the podcast, of course. And I too will add to my long list of books from authors I've had on my show that I want to read. It's a never-ending list. It's like one of those old movies with Romans or Greeks when they unroll the freaking tablet and it's just going down the floor.
How
But
fun.
someday when I retire and I have time to read all these books, and I'm going to start buying a lot of them when I have the money soon, but like I'm going to have a library literally to read a books to read when I retire, and I look forward to that. But or hopefully
Go.
when my kids are older and require less and my podcasts are less demanding, then maybe.
When there's more, I understand that completely.
Oh, I love that one Twilight Zone where the guy ends up in the library and he's the only person on Earth, and I'm just like, oh, that's my dream. That's my dream.
What a beautiful escape right there. Wouldn't that be fantastic?
I mean, as long as it's not like Twilight Zone and your eyes don't fall out because you're the only man left alive, and it's ironic. But
Just good play.
but
100%.
I want to thank Justin for coming on because it's been an amazing episode, and
Oh my God.
we actually did hit the normal today. We hit the normal more than the paranormal, and I am proud of that fact.
Yay!
Finally. But I'm sure I'll have more paranormal from my listeners with the paranormal next time. So no worries. You'll get your fix.
But just know there are stories in my book about seeing him pass this that would definitely attract your
Oh, I'm sure. I wouldn't have had you on unless I thought there was a way my listeners could have wanted to read your book, and because of this, because of the idea of it, I'm sure they would love to because of the stories in it. So please, listeners, go to the description and check out his book. And I'm pretty sure if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. So,
it is actually, for mentioning that, is completely free if you do.
Because I did look at his Amazon page yesterday for a minute. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. So there you go. But all my listeners, you know you can find me on Facebook as Paranormal New Normal / Maniacal Music Musings. New name coming soon. Podcast with an S group. You can find me on Twitter and the Gram as that Juggalo Bastard. And you can find me on TikTok as that Juggalo Bastard Podcast. And you can find me on YouTube as Paranormal New Normal, where this is streaming currently. Among other places. And wherever you're watching or listening, please like and subscribe. Your likes and subscribes keep this podcast going. So until next time, thank you to all my watchers and thank you to all my listeners. And Justin, thank you for coming on and telling us your story. It's always appreciated.
It's a great show, Jeremy. Thank you again so much for having me.
My pleasure. And I will see you all next time.